I really demand my right to have that choice.
Making a noise in this world. You can bet your life.
You all know it's been going on for 10 years. In my opinion, you're all corrupt. Outside of you, Tom Berg, I've seen the papers. I don't know about the new people yet. I'm watching you. I've seen the papers. I don't know they're true. You taking donations from Monsanto. Shame on you.
Thank you. What kind of a message would this council be sending to a man fighting in his last year in office, trying to champion for us, because all the neighbor islands that he represents all signed off and support the right to know, correct? All the neighbor islands, my question, support the right to know, correct? So how can our United States Senator Daniel Akaka go there up on the hill, and when he has the microphone before him, and he says, you know what, all my people, everyone I represent, I'm here on their behalf for the right to know. If this council doesn't pass 12-57, what are we telling our United States Senator? What are we telling him? What are we telling him if we shelve this thing today?
Council member, these are the questions. Please ask questions, not to offer your ideology.
I'm just as emotional as
we
the
have
first
we have a
testimony.
lot of people here waiting for the afternoon calendar. Let's move along.
In your opinion, what do you think our United States Senator is going to do on Capitol Hill if this gets shelved today? What are we going to be telling our United States Senator, Senator Akaka?
You know, I can't even see that possibility in my mind. The only thing I can think of is getting GMOs labeled and having this entire council support it unanimously. I've had person after person tell me, this should be a no-brainer. We just have the right to know. It's a human right to know.
Give the people the power. Give the consumer the power. We deserve that power.
We do GMO education. I'm also the executive secretary to Councilman Berg. And I thank God, because I think if I weren't in this position, no one would even know that this had been slipped out of the HSAC package. And I find that very concerning. But that's okay, because the time has come for you to stand up for the people first and foremost. We need you to please restore the Maui County GMO labeling bill to the HSAC package. It's come to our attention that when it was transmitted from the HSAC president, it had both GMO labeling and the repeal for Act 55, which all other counties have granted unanimous support for. To release the EMLA agenda the day before Thanksgiving at the very end of the day, without it even posting online until the evening, was shocking. What does it say to the other counties who have unanimously supported GMO labeling and the abolishment of PLDC? Perhaps if we cannot vote on the same HSAC transmission statewide, we should disband the Hawaii State Association of Counties package. If the Honolulu City Council is going to withhold legislation from public hearing, perhaps we should just ask Honolulu to make the HSAC package all by itself, and then whatever makes it past Honolulu, the other counties might be lucky enough to vote on. Perhaps you have the biggest stick. Will you help us? We the people have the right to know what we're eating. We have the right to choose GMO or not. Organic and non-GMO is not enough when the majority of Americans are still not aware they're consuming GMOs, which are now banned in 30 countries due to environmental and health risks. This is not a debate on whether or not GMOs are good or safe. This is the right to know if you're eating something that has been gifted by the planet or genetically modified in a laboratory by major chemical companies, which are the subject of continued controversy and ethical concerns. California's Prop 37 for GMO labeling still has 3.5 million votes uncounted, yet the media called the election in GMO biotechnology favor before the count has even concluded. The FDA, USDA, and EPA are littered with GMO executives, and they will not protect us. They have not been protecting us for some time, as already 61 countries require GMO labeling. The U.S., with its carefully constructed image of safety and freedom, refuses to notify the public when they're eating food that other countries will not even feed their animals. The campaign funds of Hawaii legislators alone show over $391,000 of campaign contributions from GMO companies and their registered lobbyists. As the number of countries increase who require GMO labeling, such as China, all of Europe, Russia, and Japan, how do you think this will affect Hawaii tourism if we do not enable the right to know? We cannot leave this up to the federal government. This must come from the ground up. The enactment of GMO labeling comes from years of sweat and tears of the people who are here today urging you to have courage.
I am the president of a local nonprofit called Babes Against Biotech, and we want to make sure everyone is aware about the impacts of genetically modified organisms, and we want to stop GMOs in the entire world in the open air. We want to get them labeled in our food supply, and we want them out of the soil so they cannot contaminate the rest of our food and cause cancer, sterility, infertility, endocrine disruption, organ enlargement, problems with protein and cholesterol synthesis, things that GMOs have been linked to and banned in 29 countries with GMO labeling required in 61, but in the US, 70% of our food easily is GMO, and the head of our FDA is a former GMO executive. So we have a lot of problems in the US with GMOs, and really the US has become a threat to the global food supply, quite frankly. So we need to address that quickly while we still can. Basically, when I came up, she's an organic farmer, Mariah, when I came up against GMOs in the city council and realized how much money and influence was driving our government to levels of insanity, allowing these GMO chemical companies to openly experiment on us and our genes, I realized we're up against lobbyists who are making tons of money and giving tens of thousands of dollars to our legislators, and so I needed at least 11 other people to stand up with me. And so I thought if I did a calendar, then at least it would be 11 other women that could help tackle this, and hopefully we can get more women and men to commit to saving our species.
I do this radio show on K108 on Saturday mornings from 8 to 9.
On the AM dial.
On the AM dial, yes.
1080.
And 1080. And I've been on the air since 1981. I have no sponsors, and I pay for my own airtime. That way I can tell the truth, and I'm not beholden to anybody.
If you don't buy it, they can't sell it. So if it doesn't say organic or non-GMO, let it sit on the shelf and rot.
So when I started talking about GMOs, I kind of brought it into the street vernacular. The hookers, well, you know, would be the doctors, because they're the hookers for the pharmaceutical industry, all the commercial farmers, and of course, in Hawaii, just about every one of our politicians is genetically modified. No, seriously, because
in the pocket.
Yeah, you take a guy, let's say he's been in office for 20 years. Well, every 2 years he comes up for re-election. Well, every 2 years he gets $500 from the 4 biotech companies. That's $2,000 every 2 years.
Minimum.
For example.
Minimum.
From example. So over 20 years, that's 20 grand. Then you take a hooker like Russell Kokobun, who was appointed by our genetically modified governor to be the head of the Department of Agriculture. I mean, this guy's taken so much money, I'm surprised he even wants to work in government. It's ridiculous. So if anybody is interested in knowing who the tricks are, when this program is finished and you're all done, just stand up and look in the mirror. It's really simple, because we are all the tricks. We are the ones that are being persecuted and demeaned. See, the politicians want our vote, because if they don't get our vote, they don't get elected. But once they're elected, they take the money from the pimp and they laugh all the way at the bank, and they can care less about the people. And with all these hearings that were coming up, that is so evident. I just wrote an article about the travesty that happened here in Hawaii, and I don't know if they're going to be upset, but I gave all the email addresses of the 4 guys that voted against the labeling bill, and I told them that they all took money from Monsanto, and I told them that they would love to hear from you. When you go to the store and you pick up a product, you look at the label.
Right.
You know how many calories, how much salt,
Yes.
how much sugar,
Yes.
how much fat. You know if it's organic because it'll label organic. If you don't want it, based upon the information that you're reading, you put it back. I want to know if it's genetically modified, because I wouldn't touch that crap with a 10-foot pole. So I want to know that. Why can't they tell me that it's genetically modified?
This is my point. But
what are they afraid of? If Monsanto is the salt of the earth, And their product is going to feed the world and all of humanity, and it's so good. You would think that they would be the first ones to want to label it, because people would come out of the woodwork to buy it. So many people would clamor for it. They would make so much money, they could not produce it fast enough.
Mikey likes it.
Result, the vast majority of European consumers are very aware of the presence of GMOs and have wholly rejected them. Similarly, Monsanto, which has met incredible resistance in introducing new GMOs to the European market, has decided to stop pushing MON 810, a variety of GM corn that contains pesticides genetically engineered into its kernels. In 2010, Germany banned MON 810, and France has continued to enforce a moratorium on its plantings, which are two examples of what Monsanto recently dubbed as unfavorable conditions. This is another nail in the coffin for GMO foods in Europe.
It was the same with hydrochloride. They freak out
Yeah.
about labeling. They say it's going to cause all this economic devastation. In all actuality, that was, I think, with hydrochloride in particular, only 5% of the biotech and chemical industry's original quote for how much it was going to devastate the economy. It only cost 5% of what they said. It's just like with GMO labeling. They say it's going to cost $400 a year, blah, blah, blah. All the industry studies are over-exaggerating. You look
Correct.
at real studies of places that have actually enacted GMO labeling, and in all actuality, it's less than $5 per person per year to know whether
Right.
or not your food has been genetically engineered by chemical companies that have been kicked out of 30 countries.
Well, I have a question. Why have over 20 countries banned GMOs? And if they accept GMOs, they want to make sure they're labeled. It's this country that Monsanto pays people off like there's no tomorrow.
Oh, yeah.
And, I mean, look at, we got two people in the Supreme Court that used to be Monsanto's attorneys. We got Michael Taylor, who runs the FDA. Oh, cute. Who used to be one of Monsanto's attorneys. We got Tom Vilsack, who was one of the biggest hookers for the biotech industry, that was appointed the head of the Department of Agriculture. As numerous states ramp up to pass GMO labeling laws in America, Monsanto and BASF are now directing even more of their attention at the American market, which is currently the world's most favorable for the stealth injection of GM poisons into the food supply.
Look at these rat tumors that come from the longest study on GMO consumption in the history of the world. This is Seralini's study. He used the same rats that, let's see, how can I hold this for you? He used the same rats that Monsanto used in many of their similar studies on GMO corn. Monsanto will say left and right, oh, these rats, they get tumors. They're bred to get more tumors. Oh, well, then why did you use them for your test? Did you know that GMO foods are released onto the food supply with sometimes and mostly 90-day trials performed by the GMO companies themselves? It just so happens the tumors start showing up at 4 months. So their studies go 3 months. The tumors don't start showing up until 4 months.
Are you aware of the President of the United States platform of his position running for office prior to election? What was the position of the President of the United States from Hawaii on the right to know?
He said that as soon as he got into office, he would mandate GMO labeling.
And what has happened?
Nothing.
And who has the President appointed to head up the field in which GMO labeling would come about?
Former biotech executives, and I might mention that Hawaii Crop Improvement Association is run by Fred Perlak, who clearly works for Monsanto, and Alicia Maluafiti, clearly a Monsanto lobbyist.
My name is Fred Perlak. I'm the Vice President of Research and Business Operations for Monsanto here in Hawaii.
President Obama, which people are calling GM Obama, way to go, okay? He signed H.R. 933, so the resolution, including the Monsanto Protection Act, which is basically a snuck-in biotech rider that says even if the courts find that a GMO patent was, or a GMO approval was given illegally, that Monsanto and these other GMO companies will be able to continue planting and selling their GMOs even if approval has been overturned by a court of law. So if the best environmental attorney in the country proves that these GMOs are harmful
matter.
and it's illegal and it's found to be illegal and overturned, the legislative branch now, I mean, it's crazy. It's
Doesn't
crazy.
matter.
There's no separation between executive. There's no separation of powers anymore. There's no balances and checks. Basically, our own government cannot even stop Monsanto from planting and selling their
How
stuff.
did, wait, real quick.
Yeah.
How did our Hawaii delegation vote on this?
Look like
It's
hookers.
shameful.
Yes.
It's shameful. Mazie Hirono, Brian Schatz, and Tulsi Gabbard all voted in support of this resolution, including the biotech writer. The only one who voted on our side was Colleen Hanabusa. Surprise. She's the only one who stuck with us and said, no, I'm not going to approve this. This is a violation of the Constitution. And what I want to really remind people, that's so important for us to really look at major transformation, everything that Hitler did was legal because he made the laws. This is what's going on here. It's not that it's okay. It's because they are the ones controlling it. It's not that it's okay to release new genes and force into each other in a laboratory, into our food supply, that could have detrimental effects that have been linked to all these problems leading to their ban in 30 sane countries. It's the fact that Michael Taylor is the head of he's the deputy commissioner of the FDA, former vice president of Monsanto, registered top lobbyist. He's gone back and forth from deputy commissioner of the FDA to vice president of Monsanto twice now. And what you have is a lot of the FDA scientists are saying, you know, we can't afford this technology. It's too expensive. We can't even afford to regulate it. There's too many risks. We can't release this. And Michael Taylor saying, nah, 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 it's all good.
Well, you know,
it's all good.
You know what the USDA says? The USDA has come out and said that the only people that can release any safety testing on GMOs is the biotech industry.
Right.
Right, because the technology said, no, they're just
Because after all, what does an independent scientist know? He's got to be a hooker for the pimp, otherwise it doesn't mean anything.
right, and we can't afford this totally cost-ineffective technology testing, so we'll just leave the fox to guard the hen house, and we'll see you guys in 30 years when 55% of your babies are dead, like hamsters fed GMO soy. Okay, the third generation, 55% of the pups had mortality rate. And this is including the control groups that were not eating GMOs. They went totally infertile, totally sterile, and GMO soy-fed hamsters actually grew hair out of their teeth. Out of their teeth. Yeah. And the hamsters' testicles turn a dark blue and purple versus the control group healthy pink turn dark blue and purple. I mean, this is very serious. I don't want to have to explain to my grandkids why they got to comb their teeth.
Well, let me interject. Now, we just discussed what just happened, like you said, just yesterday. Okay. Let's bring it home. House Bill 174 passed the House, went to the Senate. Hesh, explain what was House Bill 174 and what would it do?
Well, 174, as far as I understood, it was going to label any foods coming into Hawaii that were genetically modified.
That was not how it started. It started as labeling all GMO foods. It was actually even a little too comprehensive, but that gives some room to scale it back.
I was going to get there. So then they added the local stuff should be labeled as well.
No, they didn't.
And what that did was it set up the bill for immediate failure. And that's why all the hookers in the House of Representatives, you voted unanimously to get it away from them and into the Senate.
Wait. It started labeling all the GMOs. Then it got Cliff Sujit, who was named Biotech Legislator of the Year by the International Biotech Consortium. Representative Cliff Sujit. So when it went through the second committee, it was changed to remove the local produce and only make it imported produce, knowing that that would violate the Interstate
And
Commerce
change the
Clause
bill and would make it
change the bill
fail.
and make it fail, make it unconstitutional. So that way we have to fight to get even just local produce added back in. They went from labeling GMOs to only labeling produce, to only labeling imported produce, knowing that would force it to
Right.
fail unless
Right.
it was changed. But we don't have enough legislators en masse to change the bill in
That's
committees
correct.
like the way it's supposed
So
to
just
be.
last week, House Bill 174 got to the Senate. What happened?
Died. Everybody voted.
No,
What
they're going to do a study. Wait,
It was
they're
an
going to do a
orchestrated-
study.
Yeah, yeah,
It was
but
an
you know who the
orchestrated
study
check.
is going to be? The study is going to be all the hookers on the University of Hawaii. It's going to be the Department of Agriculture with Russell Kokobun. It's basically all the Monsanto hookers.
and-
It's
It's
dead.
literally all agencies who have testified in opposition to GMO labeling. Who the okay, and I could have. They refused to pick on me to testify. They were handpicking.
So
from
wait,
people who-
wait. When House Bill 174 got to the Senate, you were not able to testify, even though you were there?
First of all, let's talk about how it even got to the Senate. So we got it out of the Senate. We couldn't get a hearing. So Babes and Citizens for the Right to Know, we gathered. We collected a third of the Senate signatures to force it to the Senate floor via Senate Rule 52.
Well done. Well done.
Okay, but that's only if they hadn't heard the bill. Then we could force it to the floor with 52. Otherwise, we had to get the majority of committee members to enact Rule 23. And so anyways, we got the signatures we needed. They wanted that bill dead on Monday, but we had those signatures Monday night. The problem is they knew that, so they sent their lobbyists into the Senate President's office the next morning, Tuesday morning. John Radcliffe and George Morse, the top two GMO lobbyists, were seen leaving the Senate President's office like, the hearing's on Thursday. Because if they hear
But they didn't tell anybody.
Right? Well, so what they did is they convinced the Senate President, Donna Kim, who's taken over $8,000 from GMO companies and recently appointed Monsanto lobbyist Alan Takimoto to the nominating committee to select water commissioners at the behest of PLDC mama Senator Malama Solomon. So Senator Kim changed the referrals to take pro-labeling Senator Green, who was the primary chair, off the bill. She wanted to take them off the bill altogether and put Nishihara and Baker, who are big GMOs, who together have taken over 22 grand from GMO companies, to put them in charge of the bill. It was a planned, orchestrated dog and pony show. We'll have a hearing to act like we're conceding to the public's desire to have a hearing. No, they were forced to have a hearing. If we hadn't had those signatures, they would have never had that hearing, and they would have had a plan the whole time to kill it and turn it into a study.
Well,
and
what-
if they would have called me to testify, I would have predicted, oh, I predict you're going to kill this and try to turn it into a study to save face.
What about
Baker.
that hearing? What about that hearing where they never told all the proponents of labeling that there was going to be a hearing, and they only told the people from the biotech?
Well, that was at the council level.
Oh,
Yeah, well,
That was at the council.
that's
Oh,
even
Honolulu
worse.
City
Ernie
Council.
Martin, $8,000. I mean,
More than
there's-
that. More than that, no.
The labeling system, as mandated by the FDA, should really be restricted for issues of health, safety, and nutrition. The GMO foods are not a risk for health, safety, or nutrition.
This GMOs are the tobacco of 30 years ago. Now, if people want to wait 30 years or 40 years to see if they're going to get sick, they have a choice. They can either spend a little bit more money now and eat organic or local, or they can just ride it out and use that money to spend on doctor bills and hospital bills.
You've been very vocal with your radio program. How would you characterize the state of affairs currently today
Well,
when it comes to the right to know?
in Hawaii, people don't have a chance. Politicians here are none of a part of a government of, for, by the people. They are a part of a government of, for, and by the corporation. Who pays the most money gets the most results. The people, you see, politicians have the feeling that the people are smart enough to elect them, but not smart enough to know what's good for them. And only they can determine what's good for them. And the way they have proved that they're determining that is by how much money they take. If a corporation were to pay them more, that would maybe be a labeling corporation, maybe then we'd have a chance. Politicians have the feeling that the people are smart enough to elect them, but not smart enough to know what's good for them. And only they can determine what's good for them. And the way they have proved that they're determining that is by how much money they take. If a corporation were to pay them more, that would maybe be a labeling corporation, maybe then we'd have a chance. Do you remember Proposition 37 in California? Okay, got defeated. Gee, I wonder why. Monsanto and the biotech industry and all the major food companies, what, they came up with almost $50 million. Gee, and the organics, oh God, they only came up with about 12 or 9 or $10 million. Gee, how'd that work? So then they wanted to do a recount. Well, they picked one county in California, they did a recount, and there wasn't much of a difference. So then they decided to go to Fresno County. Now, the county clerk in Fresno County, who somehow replaced the previous county clerk, who somehow retired with 3 more years to go, and gee, I wonder why that happened, she is part of big farming. And now you've got all these major companies that contributed major dollars to defeating Proposition 37 that are in Fresno County, and all of a sudden, a 5-minute phone call to the county clerk's office cost $800. The bottom line was, in order for them to do a recount, it would have cost close to $20,000 in Fresno County, all because of big agriculture and the large food companies that supported the no aspect of Proposition 37 that were focused there.
And by big ag, I mean specifically referring to these GMO companies, right?
Well, I got a list here. Make a point.
Yeah, it's the big food industry, but they are the ones using genetically modified foods and
Absolutely.
ingredients. You know, Prop 37 for GMO labeling, I have to even believe that lost. They didn't count some 2 million votes. They called the election before they counted some 2 million votes.
It has to start here. We must not delay. I urge you to please have the courage to protect us. I received a petition the other day from a 10-year-old non-GMO activist. The children are urging us, the adults, to protect them since they are not old enough to vote themselves. It is not your children who will see the potential effects of GMO foods in our diets. It is their children and their grandchildren. We cannot afford to not label GMOs. And you can have the courage to stand behind it, because we are here in Hawaii and we are being experimented on, and we deserve more than anyone to know if we are eating GMOs as the site of the world's foremost experimental GMO field trials. With or without our consent, we are being experimented on, so please be brave.
So there's basically 2 kinds of GMOs. There's the GMOs that have pesticides engineered into every cell. So like GMO corn, it's BT corn is producing GMO in every kernel. And then you have the GMOs that are engineered to be resistant to pesticides, so they can sell a lot of the chemicals. So these chemical companies who make them sell. Like Monsanto, they make Roundup Ready soy because they sell Roundup. Now 49% of U.S. farms, according to a recent study by Center for Food Safety, found that 49% of U.S. farms are covered in superweeds that are resistant to Roundup, to glyphosate, the active ingredient of Roundup. So basically what happens, you engineer all they're all clones, they don't have any biodiversity, so there's nothing to build their resistance. We're all different, so if humanity gets hit with something, there's a chance that each of us are enough different that we may have enough to survive all the way around.
There's a gene pool that will survive.
There's a gene pool that will survive. With these, they're all clones, so if something gets hit, it takes all of them out. And then you have, you know, also the fact that they're using other species, so it's not just those 2 traits. You look at GMO fish, for example, they're taking the genes from one fish and adding it to genes from a salmon, and they use gene guns to force genes together. It's we're not talking about a horse and a mule. We're talking about
It's like combining
apple and donkey. We're
Right.
talking
Or
like
dog and an
spider
ant.
and lettuce.
Right.
We're talking human liver and rice. No joke. There
Okay.
are 3,200 acres of GMO rice with human liver genes engineered in Kansas right now. And the problem is that these GMOs contaminate everything else. So if we want all of our rice to have human liver genes engineered into it, then maybe we should all go rent Soylent Green and rethink whether or not that's a great idea.
I'm going to make a point about that, but I would like to give out a little
Good
bit
point.
of
Good
information, if I may, that a lot of people don't know about. Your genetically modified products are basically 95% of all soy products. That's number one. Not only 95% of soy, but 90% of corn products. And then, of course, there's canola, which I don't care if it says organic or not. You tell me where I can pick a canola, and I'll eat canola oil. You can't pick a canola. It's a process.
Yeah.
So you got soy, corn, and then, of course, the cottonseed oil. That's about 85%.
Give the people the power. Give the consumer the power. We deserve that power.
These are your big four. Now they want to get into alfalfa seeds, and they want to get into...
They already did alfalfa.
Okay, so people don't know that if it's soy, corn, or cotton,
or sugar,
and it doesn't say organic, and it doesn't say non-GMO, don't buy it. Okay.
Well, I'm sorry, but sugar too. Okay, if it doesn't say cane
Cane sugar.
or non-GMO sugar or something, if it just says sugar or any variety of sugar without organic or non-GMO, that means it's likely coming from the GMO sugar beet. You know, we also take into zucchini. Okay, green zucchini, yellow crookneck squash, and just FYI, canola is a marketing name for
Canadian
lower
oil.
Rusic acid, which is basically rapeseed oil was used in World War I and II as machine oil, very high temperature machine oil. After World War II, the Canadian government had a ton of rapeseed plants and not much to do with them, especially since rapeseed oil had been banned for consumption for the United States. So they hybridized it a little bit. They made a new version with a lower acid, and they called it canola. All right, now very quickly that was taken over by the GMO crops, and now basically almost 100%.
Even if it says organic,
even if it says organic or non-GMO, canola isn't even an original plant. It's modified rapeseed. It's now at this point it's genetically modified rapeseed oil, which is toxic and banned for human consumption.
Wow.
Okay, wait, there's more. There's more. It gets even better. It gets even better. You people remember Vietnam.
Agent Orange.
Agent Orange. You know, it just made Vietnam into a desert. So
a
they
defoliant.
Defoliant so they could see the enemy. Whoa, great. Okay, so two problems. First problem was the soldiers come back and they're all messed up from being exposed to Agent Orange, and the government says, sorry, there's nothing we can do for you.
Yeah, that wasn't Agent Orange.
Yeah.
What?
Yeah, you got to grin and bear it, man. That's just part of the job. Okay, now 2,4-D, which is the active ingredient in Agent Orange, is being sprayed in all the cornfields in the contiguous United States.
By a different name.
And for you people, contiguous means all the ones that are connected. So anyway, Monsanto was saying, hey, you can eat that with no problem. Over my dead body, I wouldn't touch that with a 10-foot pole.
And I think when you think about when we are talking about pesticides, people think, oh, you can spray it off with a conventional. No, because it does not biodegrade. These companies have been found guilty of lying about the biodegradability of their products, in France in particular, but the product doesn't biodegrade. So when you spray pesticide on something, you're not eating organic, the plant drinks pesticide. You remember that carnation test where you put a white carnation and then you put food coloring in the cup of water, a couple hours later you have a blue carnation? It's the same thing with the food. If it's not engineered to resist the pesticides and is drinking pesticides, it's engineered to contain pesticides, which can then cause horizontal gene transfer and lodge bacteria in your gut and force your own body to start being basically a pesticide factory. So way to go, Monsanto.
Well, it gets even better. Now, you have people out there that adhere to a plant-based diet, and you have people that adhere to, if it had a face and a mother, I want to eat it diet. Okay, what they feed to livestock is cornmeal, which is genetically modified. Plus, they have tons of antibiotics, tons of bovine growth hormones, and people don't understand why they're getting sick, because nobody discloses this to anybody. Now, I don't care what it is. Why would anybody want to eat? And basically all processed foods contain GMOs.
All non-GMO organic processed foods, but there's organic processed foods
Like
that don't
what?
contain. I mean, anything that's packaged that's organic, that's processed in some way, but it's not
Well,
GMO.
we're talking about processed foods with stuff that has high fructose corn
Okay,
syrup.
right. So that's stuff
Yeah,
that has high fructose
right.
corn syrup. But I'm saying there are processed organic foods. Right now, it's like 70% of processed food totally in the U.S.
It's-
at least is GMO.
Yeah.
Yeah.
At least 75 to 80 is
least,
the
yeah.
last report. Anyway, so I was getting about this thing that happens. So these are the companies in Fresno: Kraft Foods, Del Monte Foods, Foster Farms, Zaki Farms, Sunmade, and ConAgra. And you wonder why Proposition 37 lost?
Why don't they want us to know what's in the food? You know, and I said that after
'Cause they'll
174,
lose
after
money.
they killed 174. You know, I just turned straight to the camera. I said, they don't want us to know what's in the food.
Right.
Think about that. Think about that. Why don't they want us to know what's in the food? What is wrong with this picture? Why doesn't our government want us to know? It's a very serious question.
I think on the next time we do this, she has to become more passionate. Wait,
And I
wait.
think too, labeling, labeling, ban it. We want it banned. At least our organization, Babes Against Biotech, yeah, we want to label GMOs, whatever's left, but we want it banned from the open air. It's
Right.
destroying our agriculture. Right now, Hawaii is the site of the most open air new GMO species releases in the whole world. Literally thousands of new genetically engineered species that were mostly made with gene gun technology. So shooting genes from one species into another with antibiotics, because their technology is so imprecise that they only have a way to test for antibiotics to see if it took to the new cell or not. And now I'm antibiotic resistant. And if I don't know it's GMO and I'm going to eat antibiotics and it's going to what? Kill me? Thanks a lot, Monsanto.
The people do not deserve to be poisoned without knowing that they're eating poison.
What do you think it will take to turn this around?
I think it'll take the people. I think it's up to each and every one of us to rebel against the corporations. It takes the people to protest. You got to remember, we are the ones that elect the politicians. I personally say vote for change, re-elect none of them. Just start fresh every 2 years if you have to, until you find people that are actually going to work for the people.
You know, that is true. That is true. And I think it's really pathetic how they try to, the GMO industry and the lobbyists and their PR people, they try to shoot down the movement sometimes and say, oh, it's emotional. I am passionately giving you facts.
Yeah.
86%
That's right.
of babies
That's right.
in mothers were tested positive for Bt toxin in their blood. And some 93% of the mothers at gynecology hospitals, Sherbrooke Gynecology Hospital in Canada, 93% of the mothers had Bt toxin in their blood, 86% of the babies. Facts. And I
Yep.
hate when they say, oh, you guys are so emotional. No, I'm giving you a fact. I have a right to know what's in my food.
Absolutely.
And actually I audited the legislature, the House and the Senate and the governor last year and the Honolulu City Council, and I found over $391,000 of GMO-related campaign contributions. Fact. If you include the 2 wives and 1 daughter of the top 2 lobbyists, John Radcliffe and George Morris, who were seen leaving Senate President Kim's office the morning the referrals was changed to help orchestrate the killing of the GMO labeling bill. If you include their 2 wives and 1 daughter between the 2 of them, those numbers nearly double with the governor alone. And those women are not registered lobbyists. So they are flooding money. They have multiple lobbyists. They're flooding. It's not just the 500 every year, every 2 years. That's just if you're not doing anything actively for Monsanto and these GMO companies. If you're doing more, more. When you look at Senate President Kim, she's over 8,000. Nishihara, over 8,000. Senator Rosalind Baker, she's got to go $14,100. In total, I found 391 grand.
Amazing.
You know, and it's just like, I know that's just the tip of the iceberg. I know.
Quick, the problem is this. This is the crux. The Food and Drug Administration has said GMOs are not worth your time.
That's true. That's because the thing is run by a former Monsanto guy.
And I don't think it's so much if you don't like it, change the channel. You can't change the channel off GMOs because once they're out in the open air, it's irreversible.
right.
That's why 29 countries have banned it altogether, or I mean, you know, over 20 countries have banned it altogether. 29 have bans, 61, I think now 63 require labeling. It's because once you let the cat out of the bag, it's like Pandora's box. You can't bring it back in. You can't retract it.
Are they burning crops in Peru?
They're burning crop. They just burned a bunch of crops and banned them in Hungary. Syria
over 20
is having
countries.
major civil problems, and they just banned GMOs to preserve human health.
Give the people the power. Give the consumer the power. We deserve that power.
But in memory of a peasant farmer named Benjamin Lezcano from Paraguay, who was the leader of an anti-GMO, they were fighting GMO soy takeover. You gotta understand, in other countries where they don't have iPhones to live stream everything, it's a lot worse. Benjamin Lezcano was murdered. He was assassinated, 50 bullets. 2 assassins came and shot him at his house. He's an anti-GMO peasant farmer leader. They were resisting GMO soy takeover. This is after over 370 people were evicted from their property. The GMO soy producers in Paraguay teamed up with the local police and went and kicked 370 people off of their land and burned their houses to the ground and killed 2 people. Benjamin Lezcano is the 129th farmer to be murdered in ag-related land struggles in Paraguay just in the last, I think, 5 years. So
If 10 years ago, or even 6 years ago, if 4 people showed up to testify,
Right.
and now we're having marches,
Hundreds.
hundreds,
Thousands.
that
7,500
that
in
is going to turn
2013.
into thousands and millions.
Yes.
It's already thousands. We have 7,500 people marched in Hawaii
It's
this year alone.
crazy.
Right.
7,500.
Can I do something funny?
Yes.
When that 174 bill got
House
defeated,
Bill 174.
House
When
Bill
they wouldn't let me
174.
Heard in the
testify on it.
Senate.
Right,
wouldn't
when
let
they
me.
wouldn't let all the Monsanto
They wanna
people could
study it.
testify.
Right.
So Fred Perlak, who's the head hooker from Monsanto here, he wrote a letter to the editor, and I don't want to misquote.
Dated.
because
What date was this? And what publication?
It was in the Star Advertiser, and it came out, I think, on the 25th or the,
Of March?
yeah, just recent, a couple of days ago. And this is what he said.
Only thing I can think of is getting GMOs labeled and having this entire council support it unanimously. I've had person after person tell me this should be a no-brainer. We just have the right to know. It's a human right to know.
For the record, we support voluntarily labeling akin to the program proposed by Whole Foods. Voluntarily labeling can provide information to those customers who want it and avoid the constitutional, economic, and cost problems of mandatory labeling. Our 1,000 employees and their families are concerned about such a crazy attitude because it is their futures that are being jeopardized by such an irresponsible opinion.
Oh.
Now wait, so I decided, okay, let's get real here. So I decided to put it in everyday language, but I'm going to have to change one of the words. And this is basically, if he was really talking straight, he would say, we don't really give a crap if Whole Foods or other natural food stores don't carry our poisons,
Right.
because they make up a small part of the shopping population. Besides, those stores carry different products than the regular supermarket chains and the local grocery stores carry. So who cares? That's not going to affect our profit. That's what makes more sense. That's what he should have said, but he didn't. But I said it for you.
Right. So
Can I make one other point? You were talking about Soylent Green. For those of you out there who don't understand Soylent Green, that was a movie that starred Charlton Heston. Okay, in 1975 there was a movie called Soylent Green that starred Charlton Heston. And it was New York City in the year 2030. And there were 30 million people
living in New York City. There was no sunlight, there was no rain, there was no grass, there was nothing. It was bleak and it was horrible. And the food that was served to the people was Soylent Green. So Charlton Heston wanted to know what Soylent Green was. So he undertook the project and he found out that Soylent Green was the dead people being fed back to the living people. And I wouldn't be surprised if Monsanto was not the first company to open up a Soylent Green factory in the United States.
He found out that Soylent Green was the dead people that were being fed back to the live people.
Because they couldn't grow any food anymore.
Right, because there was no more food. So what I wanted to point out was Monsanto says they are going to be the saviors of the world. They want to feed everybody. Well, what they're not telling anybody is that they're part of the eugenics program. Because
That's a strong statement. Ed.
Oh, well, I said it. What are you going to call me a pisher? What can I say? So they're part of the eugenics program. You mean to tell me that I can spend a lifetime eating toxic chemicals and pesticides, and that's not going to affect me, and I'm going to live a healthy, vibrant life without growing a third ear or another eye or something? I don't believe that. So the point is, I believe, just like Noni said, that they're going to open up the first Soylent Green factory. What could be more loving than a neighbor eating another neighbor?
You know, well, if you're like Senator Nishihara, Senator Clarence Nishihara, and you believe that these chemicals like DDT cause no damage, which we have on film, Senator Nishihara saying everyone sprayed with DDT is fine, and that
That's why we banned it.
Now.
That's why we banned it.
Right, and DDT is banned for causing birth defects and neurological problems.
Just like thalidomide. Remember thalidomide back in the 50s?
Be visionary leaders into the future of food safety, and not the last on the list to notify the public of health risks in their food. We can either choose to pioneer these coming changes together and say to the world that Hawaii health is important above all to both our residents and legislators, or we can sit aside in silence waiting for our cues. And I quote Dr. King Jr., there comes a time when silence is betrayal.
Give the people the power. Give the consumer the power. We deserve that power.
I'm looking at quite a bit of testimony. One of them is from Councilmember Anderson's district. They're all from Kailua. It's a couple pages here, and there is there is such an effort to just ask this council to do what the neighbor islands have all the other counties have already engaged and passed. They've deliberated, they've debated, and they've made a determination that they would like the federal government to take action. So there was always this discussion amongst ourselves and others at the state legislature that when the state legislature did not follow suit and even offer a hearing, to me, that's the biggest disservice of government, Councilman Pukachola, is that when we have 76 legislators across the street from City Hall that refuse to even hear a measure, that's why we've had to take unique circumstances. That's why we've had to bang on the doors.
What this council is trying to do now is more or less compromising the integrity of this council. What is posted is filing. What we're trying to do now is an FD1 which is not even posted. Guess what? All those who are testifying now are in support of this FD1. Somebody must have tipped them off, and all the other guys are not here to testify. The process is, I believe, being compromised. The respect of people towards us is compromised.
I will just speak to the technical aspects of the motion. I understand the concerns raised by my colleague, Councilmember Cachola, with respect to blindsiding, quote unquote. But this measure was on a public hearing notice, and so all sides on this issue had an opportunity to weigh in today. So it's not exactly blindsiding. So I will vote yes on the motion to reconsider, and I will also vote yes on the matter that will come before us if it does come for us to a vote. And I do not want this recommitted. I want a decision today.
The first testifier in tears basically said it all. They're here pleading with government to say no one's being usurped, Chair, members. Nothing's being done in such an accord that the process of democracy hasn't been undertaken. To file this today, and the reason it's on the calendar for filing is because we had a 4-4 vote tie. And nobody likes a tie. Even in soccer, you got to have a shootout. This is my shootout because the folks I represent in District 1 asked for a shootout. So when we had a 4-4 tie because one of our members was absent, the member's now here. I'm calling out that member to say up or down. What are you going to do?
So if we don't reconsider this today, is there another opportunity for us to hear this again? Perhaps somebody submitting a new bill, in essence the same thing, just along the lines with what Councilmember Cachola raised. I just want, before I decide which way I'm going, to be sure that we're not actually making this final, killing this. May I call up Council Services as someone to answer my question?
Yeah, Jim Wilson. So you can hear it directly from the expert himself.
Because I was under some impression that once we kill something, we could not, in essence, bring the same thing back. So before I decide, I want to ask.
Yeah, Jim Williston, Office of Council Services. In answer to your question, if the measure is not reconsidered, it would be dead. But if you pass the motion to reconsider, the main motion returns to the floor, and a motion at that point could be to recommit, defer, or amend, as Councilmember Berg has proposed. But the motion to reconsider would have to pass at this meeting, or else the measure would be dead.
First of all, at the City Council, we do not regulate genetically modified organisms. We don't regulate abortion. We don't regulate gun control, same-sex marriage. A lot of issues are just utterly beyond our purview. So, you know, in terms of the venue, this I don't feel is the correct venue to be discussing this issue. I just don't feel at this time that labeling is needed here at the City Council level. So I won't be supporting this resolution going forward.
Refreshing everyone's memory that when the legislative package for all the counties and all the other counties in the state of Hawaii were waiting on Oahu to take action, Chair, is that was so heavily, thoroughly debated. The stack of testimony I had was 2 inches thick, and it was deliberated on and on and on. Then when Councilwoman Gabbard took the initiative up and heard it in her committee, on and on, over and over. To me, as far as I'm concerned, I'm no disrespect to Councilmember Cachola, but this is really, again, extra innings and just getting a vote on the table and saying, do we go back to Councilwoman Gabbard and do this all over again? And hearing after hearing after hearing. These folks have been really working hard on this. They deserve a vote. That's my opinion.
Any further discussion? Briefly.
Yeah. That is, to my mind, a good proposal. But the thing, though, is the other side was not informed. You tip them off to come here and testify. Well, the other side is not. Is that fair? So what I'm saying is, we should at least have this thing filed, meaning forget about reconsideration.
But my largest concern, Chair, was having this go over to the state legislature, and I'm also a firm believer in home rule. For that, with that said, Mr. Chair, I am willing to vote with reservations this afternoon on the FD, provided it's the FD.
Members, any further discussion? No further discussion. Members, I'm just going to offer some brief comments. I will ask the audience to please withhold your applause. On this particular motion to reconsider, I will be voting in favor of the motion to reconsider. I will also be voting in favor of Resolution 12-57 FD1 as amended by the Councilmember Berg. You know, people would construe my vote as a change of position, you know, with regards to this matter, but I haven't changed my position. I've always been consistent in my position. When this matter came before the council, I talked to the author of the resolution to amend it at that time. The member chose not to. And that's the right of the member, and I've never tried to impose my will on any member within this body. So I allowed it to go forward. When this came for a vote, most recently on the floor, as chair of the council, I'm not able to make procedural motions to further amend. I could have amended it there, or any other member could have amended it there. Because I also share the philosophy by a lot of my colleagues with respect to where this matter should be best addressed. I've never had an opposition to federal government addressing this matter. Well, sure, the state legislature could have taken on this matter. For those of you who've been advocating for this issue far longer than we have discussed this, yet you haven't even been able to get a hearing. Yet we've had 5 hearings on this particular matter. 5 hearings for us to hear your opinion as well as the opposing opinion. Okay, Resolution 12-57 has been amended to the hand-carried FD1. Members, any objection to waiving Council Rule 19.F? This is the 48-hour notice rule. We need 6 votes to move this forward. Any objections? No objections. Any reservations? No reservations. The 48-hour rule has been waived. Any discussion, members, on the motion to adopt? No further discussion. Members, any objections to adopting Resolution 12-57 FD1? Noting 1 objection, 2 objections from Councilmember Chang and Councilmember Cachola. Any reservations, members? Reservations from Vice Chair Ikaika Anderson. Committee Report 99 and Resolution 12-57 FD1 has been adopted.
Guys that voted against the labeling bill, and I told them that they all took money from Monsanto, and I told them that they would love to hear from you. And whoever reads this, can you please send them an email and let them know that you know that they have their heads where the sun doesn't shine?
Give the people the power. Give the consumer the power. We deserve that power.
There are many folks on the Waianae Coast who believed that Kim Pine, when she said she was for labeling GMOs, that when they gave her their vote, she would be indeed fighting for them. It turned out that the very first vote on the city council that Kim Pine cast was on January 9th, 2013, to make sure that Monsanto and the biotech companies trumped you and overrode you, because Kim Pine voted against labeling GMOs on January 9th, 2013, on Resolution 12-319. It's on the internet, it's online, you can all look it up. Kim Pine has lied.
5 town hall meetings, and in the election process, my opponent, Kim Pine, who beat me, said, I too want your right to know. Well, her first opportunity, she voted against your right to know, took thousands of dollars from the Alicia M's, the Monsantos, you name it. And so for you, the voter, it's not sour grapes. It's not about what candidate said what. You need to do your own homework. You need to listen to folks like this. Take responsibility. Get it right next time.
Aloha.